So I got this patch of land in southern Colorado, and I want to put up a teepee. I was expressing this desire to a friend of mine who informed me that this would be culturally appropriative. Now, this is true, but appropriation is not necessarily bad, and I want to tell you why I think so. You see, it didn't just occur to me to start appropriating Indian culture. That shit started centuries ago. By the way, a note on terms. I'm an old bartender, and sitting at my bar one day were two Indian women from the Four Corners area. A little small talk revealed that they were in town for some kind of Indian conference. Being a sensitive and diplomatic bartender, I used the term Native American and was immediately corrected. They were Indians, and in southern Colorado, that seems to be the preferred autonym. Of course, I'll defer to anyone who takes the time to inform me of what they prefer to be called. Anyways, the culture of the modern American Southwest is complicated. People have been here for at least 15,000 years. 1,000 years ago, people were building spectacular public architecture at places like Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon. The modern-day descendants of these people make up about 10% of the population of New Mexico. Many of them living in communities on the Rio Grande that have been there for most of the past millennium. In the West, there were hundreds of Indian nations and tribes interacting across millions of square miles. In 1598, the Spanish established their first permanent settlement in the region at modern-day Española. Their brutality is well documented. They were imperialists, bent on the subjugation, conversion, or extermination of indigenous peoples. Fully half of New Mexicans today identify as Hispanic or Latino. And with European colonial encroachment, all these cultures began to change. Because that's what cultures do when they come into contact with each other. They absorb elements of nearby cultures. Indians appropriated the horse, giving rise to the horse cultures of the Great Plains in the 18th and 19th centuries. In some places, Indian and Spanish culture began to fuse together, creating a culture that's distinct from either one. Just go check out the Catholic sanctuary at Chamayo. A peculiar episode in the conquest of the West took place around what is now southwestern Wyoming. From 1825 to 1840, mountain men and trappers and Indians from far and wide would converge on the annual Rocky Mountain Rendezvous. Their principal concern was to buy and sell pelts, primarily beaver, and then teamsters would drive these wares out of the wilderness in wagon trains bound for Vancouver or Missouri. But by all accounts, the Rocky Mountain Rendezvous was also a bacchanalia. Trapping was a very solitary pursuit, and the teamsters would bring booze and tobacco and other necessities. And aside from the occasional violence, everybody would have a good time. This was not at all a homogeneous group of people. The French trappers are perhaps the best known today. But besides Indians, mountain men at the rendezvous might have been Mexican or American or Russian. A Plains Indian sign language was a lingua franca. Not to put too fine a point on it, but the Rocky Mountain Rendezvous was kind of a melting pot. Legendary figures of the American West, like Kit Carson, Jim Bridger, and Sera Saint-Vrain were immersed in Indian culture. Kit Carson has been called a bloodthirsty imperialist and a racist, genocidal killer. Whatever the truth of the matter, besides English, Spanish, and French, he was apparently conversant in at least 10 Indian languages. In his later years, he seems to have become a genuine advocate for the Ute, for what that was worth. His first wife was an Arapaho woman who died in childbirth, and his second a Cheyenne, who divorced him in the traditional way by putting all of his stuff outside their tent. His third wife was Mexican, who preceded him by a month. Again, I don't want to romanticize, but what's clear is that Kit Carson lived in a multicultural milieu. And this is my cultural heritage too. Some of my culture is Indian culture appropriated 200 years ago. It may be kitsch. It may be offensive.
You ask him, forgive Yellow Elk for break promise.
But we don't get to gatekeep culture. Some of the trappings of Indian culture are so infused in white American culture that we consider them our own. A teepee is one such thing. And at the end of the day, it's just a tent. It's an artifact. And it's endemic to this region. I think a teepee honors the people who lived in this landscape before. I'm not trying to be an Indian, but neither did I decide to make this a part of my culture. We inherit our culture. It doesn't belong to us. We belong to it. Otherwise, the Predator movies don't make any sense. While I was making this video, Anna turned me on to Superman. He's Crow from Montana, and a fancy war dancer.
Disapa, shokalalo.
Balaja, we are get much la. Superman hook.
Superman.
Baba, Alagosa, Koguka Bau. Biak the shik, Biak Balachik.
He's also an MC.
Kotuk balake.
And now Baba Bala E Balay Bilakbag, and that a wa was a cat chikatala, Dagolik, Dagwa, the Shiptala, Giluk the Lock, Oak Chip Tala.
Can't rest until I accomplish what I was sent to do. Don't be blind, get closer to God in a tight situation.
I'm just tired of hearing about appropriation. Here's an Indian rapping like a brother and wearing a warrior's jacket while driving Doc Brown's time machine. And I think it's fantastic.
Like Bob Marley say, wake up and we start to praise.
And by the way, you never hear anything about the appropriation of Mongolian culture when somebody puts up a yurt.
Let go of all your stress and fear. Yo, I'm trying to have the best this year. Your blessings near, yeah. So let's be clear. Life is short, it ain't lasting long. So I'm rapping strong until the passion's gone. And leave a legacy and pass batons. And when I'm passing on, remember me, yo, but blast this song. Come on.
Every day we get up and fight. We choose to be the light. 'Cause everything gonna be alright.
Can't rest until I accomplish what I was sent to do. Don't be blind, get closer to God in a tight situation. This hip hop, and we's a nation.
Everything gonna be alright.